Yes. Anytime there is pain in your business, it means that the process is broken. There is not a process in place, or you have simply outgrown the process. Okay. So anytime there is pain, and what is pain? Pain is a very upset client. Pain is, for us, a truckload of delivered pallets that gets rejected, which does not happen. Just different types of things. When the CEO, the owner, gets the call and it's like, oh, okay, that's pain. So what that says to us as business owners, who we look inward first, we own it first, is what's the process? Is there a process? Have we outgrown it, or is it broken? And what do we need to do to fix it? So yes, at that point, you would redefine and reevaluate and make that efficient again to operate your business and document it for the saleability.
This is the Entrepreneurs United podcast with your hosts, John St. Pierre and Rich Hoffman.
Hey, entrepreneurs, are you ready to evolve? Today, we're sitting down with Annette Walter. Annette's got a lot of things going on. She's the CEO and founder of Timber Industries. She's a host of her own podcast that I had the pleasure to be on, the Entrepreneurial Evolution podcast. And also, she's the founder of iEvolve Consulting. So iEvolve, are you ready to evolve? Annette, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be with both of you and your audience.
Annette, when you talk to entrepreneurs about, are you ready to evolve? And you've worked with a lot of different entrepreneurs. There's a lot of ways they can evolve. They can evolve their minds. They can evolve their financials. They can evolve their business. They can evolve their leadership skills. They can evolve a lot of different things. In today's world, business world, entrepreneurial world, what is the one area you feel entrepreneurs need to evolve the most in?
What first comes to mind is leadership. So I first studied and really dug deep in the personal growth back in 2009 when I started working with a business coach. And I had my former real estate firm. This is 2009. Remember the fun time that was. And we were growing a 20 million, 17 location real estate footprint that was really disrupting the local market here in Baltimore at a very tough time. So I started working with a business coach at the time. And what I realized was that if you focus on your personal growth and you focus on the growth of the individuals on your team, then the company grows. And it really is that basic and that simple. A lot of times as leaders, especially in difficult economies and heavy times and unknowing times, we really just try and slam the plan down our teams on their plate, put it on their plate. And it's tough when we really focus on what their personal goals are, what their personal mission is, and where they are really looking to grow. You get that much out of them. So that's where, fast forward 2012, after I had sold that firm, the evolve word just really stuck to me. I was in the process of doing due diligence on Timber Industries to buy. Timber Industries was an existing company. And someone had reached out to me on the sidelines and said, Annette, I want your help operationally. I want you to help me grow, get out of my way as a business owner, build a team. And that personal growth and development that just I explained really stuck with me. And the word evolve just kept on coming to me. And poof, I had this mini consulting company that had started.
So for you personally in 2009, I'm curious as to what was it that was the impetus for you to evolve? Now, to add a little bit more color on the question, when I think of evolve, it is and I didn't look it up on Google or Merriam-Webster here, but I think of it as it's changing nuances to improve performance. And the classic in the animal kingdom I think of is, have you heard of a flying squirrel?
Mm-hmm.
The flying squirrel is the evolution of squirrels who were jumping from tree to tree. And the one that died wasn't able to procreate. The one that had a little bit more wings underneath its armpit, they were able to make it to the next tree and procreate. And eventually you go a million years of squirrels and you have a flying squirrel. So it's evolving based on its environment. and it's making small adaptations so that it can perform better in its environment. So that's like the classic animal kingdom example I think of. So when I'm asking you this question, I'm going, what was it you were adapting out of? What was not working for you that you needed to evolve that brought you to a business coach?
Absolutely. So you are always becoming a better version of yourself and you don't know what you don't know. So at that time, I was one of 7 male business partners. I was the only female owner. And again, 2008, and we are in survival mode. Okay. Cash flow management at its finest. We had started with 35 people, and all of a sudden we had 300 people that we were responsible for and carrying them through a market that we didn't know when the real estate market was going to shift or change or when we were going to get out of it. So you have the option to grow and change and learn and continue to be curious, or you have the option to, or the decision to blame, point, just complain, right? So I knew that I had to figure out how to really dig deep into my tenacious self and really lead and power through and carry these people through that time because it was tough. I was also trying to be a mom at the time. So trying to evolve into motherhood and being a working mommy, which has always been a dream of mine. So I knew that I always had something in me. And still, even to this day, John and I were talking about where we both stand today. That craving is still within us. I was speaking on your behalf, but I see you shaking your head, John. But that craving, that yearning for really evolving and changing and growing and curiosity, it's just kind of part of it. So I've never thought of myself as a flying squirrel, but yeah, I guess I am a flying squirrel that made it to the next branch.
Well, it's interesting. The first thing you said was being in survival mode,
Yeah.
which often can be the impetus for needing to evolve because it's not hard to evolve or die. You're in survival mode.
Mhm.
What in your experience outside of survival mode can be a motivator for someone to evolve before they hit rock bottom, before they're in fight or flight? What in your experience, how do entrepreneurs get to the point where they're motivated for an evolution prior to that?
I think it's a lot of heart. I think it's a lot of care. I think it's a lot of self awareness again, knowing that there are talents that live within each of us. And really, if you do believe in yourself, you can help others and you can make an impact and you can hold somebody's hand through something that is any type of situation, any kind of out. I can't think of anything specifically if that's what you're getting towards, but I think it's just a matter of knowing that something greater is within you. And if you can get past a lot of the head trash or the swirling of thoughts and some spiraling down that can happen in those moments and really work on bringing the best out in yourself, you can bring out the best in others. You really can.
Yeah, I wasn't digging for any particular answer from you. I wanted to get your answer, but in your answer was like someone who craves self-awareness, someone who knows they have more in them to give and wants to unlock that are the type of people who are going to be prone to evolve before they have survival mode cast upon them. How have you used some of these lessons and iEvolve consulting in what you teach others today?
So I think that what and why people come to me for their coaching, for the operational strategy, for the exit strategy planning is because I am a business owner really doing it by their side. I'm living the sleepless nights, currently on the path and building a company that it's not business isn't textbook. Business isn't business in a box. And a lot of the coaches out there, they are doing fantastic jobs. But if unless you've really known this, and I know that John can really identify this as he's creating $100 million companies, unless you've really gone through it, you really don't have a lot in your tank to give or that perspective to give. And my business coach at the time, was wildly successful and he was also a huge failure. And most of our coaching was around the failing decisions that he had made and how he rebounded through those. And I think that is just an important thing to focus on as you are going through this coaching process and as you are really uncovering more. If you're going to go down a path that you've never been before and you don't know how to get there, you have to have help. You have to have a coach. And I would say this to my kids. We were talking about kids, Rich, before we hopped on. If you need to learn how to run fast, you need a running coach. If you need to learn how to do a football stance, you just don't know how to do a football stance. I have boys, obviously. You need to be taught and coached how to do a football stance. If you need to build a $100 million company, you need to have somebody who's done it, who knows how to do it, to say, shift right, go a little bit lower in your seat or move slower, faster. So I just think it's really important.
You mentioned three things that iEvolve does there real quick. You mentioned
Mhm.
coaching, strategic planning, exit planning. Would those be
Mhm.
the three core levels where you feel, based on your experience of you evolving and learning and growing, that those are the areas you provide the most impact to the entrepreneurs you work with?
Yeah. So it's the owner. Most owners are operators. It's the plumber that puts on the business owner hat. It's the dentist that puts on the business owner hat. They don't know how to be business owners. So it's that owner that needs that kind of self awareness. How do I do this? How do I do these business things and still follow my passion of what I want to do? And then it's the team development piece, right? Really working on that personal development of each team, the highest and best use of their time and building around them, making sure they should be on the bus. And if not, helping them out the bus and really making sure they're on that right seat. And then preparing the company to sell. So
Mhm.
doing the things today with the owner's mindset and decision making and self awareness, the team's development so that they're always ready in case there's that knock at the door. And there are
Fair.
things that whether you are a startup business or you are $100 million in, that you need to have prepared for when that knock comes at the door.
Yeah.
And
And Rich, I mean, if you're
well,
okay with it, I'd like to double click on one of those, and I'd like to double click on the end, which is that exit planning. I really feel we talk a lot about in these podcasts about leadership development and team development. We don't
yeah,
talk a lot about how are you planning your business to exit. And one of the things that I had heard that has always stuck with me, Annette, is the question of who really is your customer. And the answer being the customer is the person who's ultimately going to buy your business. That's the customer. That's who you're preparing this whole thing for. It's not the homeowner who's buying your service or the professional business is buying your products or services. It's ultimately the person who's going to buy your business. That's who you're building this thing for, ultimately, if you want to exit for the most amount of value. But we don't spend enough time talking about what entrepreneurs should be doing today to potentially exit in the future, not next month or 6 months from now. That's too late. You didn't prepare enough if you're thinking that short. So, can you walk us through maybe what are some of the key things when, how entrepreneurs should be thinking about exit planning? Because it's something we just don't talk enough about.
absolutely. So it really is divided into two parts: the business owner's personal wealth portfolio, right? What they want their total global wealth legacy to look like, right? With their kids, with any generational shifting that's happening, what kind of cash flow and lifestyle they want to live as they do sell and what that looks like. So, really painting that vision with that business owner of what it is in their head that they want a sale to actually look like, right? The second part of that, so that's again going back to the owner, going back to the owner, going back to the owner. The second piece of that is really the structural piece of that. And that is making sure that you have things organized and ready at your fingertips to pull together into a lookbook, right? When and if you are ready. And what happens is you fast forward 10 years into your company and all of a sudden you are into a letter of intent for a purchase of your company and they ask for this long list, this due diligence document. And the business owner ends up trying to find things, whether it's a lease on that building that we signed 8 years ago that we don't even know why it's still there or who's still in there. It is your 401k plan and what that looks like. It is all of your payroll docs. It's details in depth of the metrics of your financials, right? So all of these different components that when I work with a business owner in this regard is they are always have a file, we use Dropbox, but organized that is their ready file, right? And it is a simple, easy list. And what I normally say is have your admin or have your ops person, sometimes your bookkeeper or financial person, just start to file these things, not in where they belong and live in your company, but in its own little portfolio. So you have a ready portfolio to go when and if that thing happens. Because right now, companies are being really gobbled up by private equity companies and they move fast. They move fast. And if you don't feel prepared, they're going to throw something in front of you and you're going to say yes to it. And then you're going to not even be fully prepared to know what to say.
So I'm going to declare a massive weakness here, which is
It's
I have
okay. You're not
attempted.
alone with my guess.
Yeah, no, I have attempted, and a few people that know me may chuckle on this one, to say, you know what, let's create a library. I want a library of all of these documents, of all of these plans, of all of these leases, of all of these things. But then the business moves so quick that then there's another one, and that one's renewed, and then there's another piece over here. And then sure enough, 6 months later, my library is decimated, right? There's missing documents, there's missing things. Do you have any tricks of the trade there and how you can keep that ready file ready at all times? Because I would have to guess, based on my experience working with entrepreneurs, that there are very few, I'd say less than 5% for sure, that have a ready file that's updated at all times of all their files in their business. Yet I find it to be so important.
Mhm.
So I haven't figured out how to do it yet in a
Mhm.
way that just keeps it updated on a continuous basis. Any tricks there that you would have for me?
Absolutely. So the business owner should not own that at all. That is part of their outcome request when they need to delegate that task and say, this is the outcome and paint the picture exactly of what you just said. It needs to be a ready file so that if there's a knock at the door, every single document in our company as it relates to sales, technology, marketing, operations, finance is fully there, ready to go. And I would task that, delegate that, have an owner of that, typically your operations manager, if not assistants, your VAs, whomever people are using out there can own this because they are organized. We as business owners are not typically, we're very creative and chaotic. I would have the most organized person on your team really create that designated spot for it and own it. And if you really want to make sure that they are staying on top of it, you hold them accountable and you say, look, if we do ever have a sale, then you will get an X% bonus when this is sold.
Mm.
They'll be tied to it. You say you get a $2,500 bonus if we get a letter of intent and all of this stuff is ready in 24 hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an
Okay.
easy incentive.
Okay. Got it. So some good actionable things there. Keep it. You mentioned Dropbox as an idea. Keep the ready file ready. Delegate the ownership. Maybe tie them to the accuracy of it on a bonus perspective. Even if you don't sell the business, you could tie them to every quarter. You're going to verify the accuracy of it, and they could get bonused on the accuracy of keeping stuff up to date. So I like that. So when you talked about exit planning, you said, look, there's two parts. There's the business owner's wealth portfolio and really evaluating all of that. And then B is just kind of the structural organization of the business to be ready at all times.
Yes.
In terms of the first part, the business owner's wealth portfolio, this question of when should I always comes up. The entrepreneur's best year is always going to be next year. So if I wait another year, my business is going to be more valuable. What else am I going to do if I sell this business? A lot of times people buy the business with terms or seller notes or earnouts and things like that that maybe are dissuading. When do you know, in your experience when you work with entrepreneurs, what are some of the keys to know it's time to exit your business and not just maybe stick with it longer?
That's a great question. Anytime a business owner sells their business, they will go through an identity crisis.
Yes.
And there is coaching around the identity crisis chapter. And it will happen regardless of if you get thousands and millions of dollars in your pocket or you feel like you just got out because you had to get out. It will happen regardless of the situation. So, first of all, you have to know that there will be an identity crisis. And to answer your original question of how you know it's time, a lot of times it comes down to situational things in life, right? Time, health, family, lifestyle. Oftentimes, business owners are selling for the wrong reasons because they think that it's the next best thing to do. And they have this really smart seller in front of them who knows how to speak the language and get these business owners to fall in love with the deal. And it's the wrong move for them. So you really need to objectively have someone on your team saying, look, you're cash flowing this much a month. And if you want to continue to cash flow this much a month and still sell, then this is how you have to position the deal. There's a lot of different things, but if they don't have it right in their head of, I want my wealth portfolio to look like this. I want my time portfolio to look like this. I want my family life to look like this. I want to be stimulated by still engaging and my lifestyle to look like this, then anybody that stands in front of them will say, this is what we've got for you. And it's the best deal in the world. And then you get lost in it. And that's a common thing. And that's now nobody's fault. It's just a common thing.
You had given 5 examples of things that would go in a lookbook or in that portfolio, and you rattled them off. You said sales, tech, marketing, operations, finance. What was that, just off the top of your head, or is that the list that you usually recommend somebody have a file folder for each of those, and that's where you put all your documents, or how do you use that? Tell me more about that list.
Absolutely. So those are the big, if you look at wearing the hat of a chief operating officer, that's really what they manage. They manage the sales and business development, the finance, the tech, the marketing, right? And then kind of anything that's ongoing client for life type of thing, right? So when those are the big categories, and what is the most important thing is that you have also not just the paperwork to support all of those things, but you have process set and systems set, because what these larger companies are doing out there is they are buying the formula, they're buying the process. And I've seen it because I will, in fact, consult for some of these private equity firms. They brought me in as my other company. We sell pallets on the national scale. So they brought me in as the pallet expert to come in, and because they don't know anything about pallets, they don't know how a lumber mill runs. They don't know all of the different KPIs of like how many pallets a minute this machine should be producing, right? How many nails should we be using? Should we be going through? What type of wood? Like all of those things. But if you have that type of thing documented in your operation manual of those different types of formulas and process and efficiencies, then that is just huge for them because they chew into formulas.
Can you speak to the value of that while operating the business? In other words, I get what you're saying in terms of for exit, that's what people want to buy. I also believe, but I'd like you to speak to, it's not just document those so people can buy them. It's actually operate your business by those because it's more efficient. Can you speak a few words into that?
Yes. Yes. So anytime there is pain in your business, it means that there's either that the process is broken, there is not a process in place, or you have simply outgrown the process. Okay. So anytime there is pain, and what is pain? Pain is a very upset client. Pain is, for us, a truckload of delivered pallets that gets rejected, which does not happen. Just different types of things. Like whenever you feel the pain, when the CEO, the owner gets the call and it's like, okay, that's pain. So what that says to us as business owners who we look inward first, we own it first, is what's the process? Is there a process? Have we outgrown it, or is it broken? And what do we need to do to fix it? So yes, at that point, you would redefine and reevaluate and make that efficient again to operate your business and document it for the saleability.
You have recommendations on when there is a process. Theoretically, that process should have worked, but it's human error that we often find is where the breakdown is. Because we could sit down and we could chart out the flow chart of what the process should be in a perfect world. And then we add people in and all the dynamics of relationships and preferences. And I had to take my kid at 2:00 to go to the doctor, so I wasn't available to do that part of the process. And who's the backup? And Like, how do people get led to follow the process well?
I think ownership is the huge piece of it. And going to the team development that we do, if you have the wrong person doing that job, okay? If, for example, if you have someone who is highly detail oriented, making a customer relation call, then that's going to be the wrong process. That's going to break. Okay. So if you have someone who is detail oriented, very quiet, introverted, doesn't like talking to people, and you have to get them on the phone as with a customer to smooth something over, to placate them, to ask for help, to get something done through relationships, it's going to fail. So you really have to unpack, yes, human error is at play, but ultimately that goes back to us as business owners putting the wrong humans in the wrong seat to do the wrong things.
Yeah. So what I heard in that is you've got to have an owner of each part of the process and make sure as a business owner that you're putting people in place who actually have the preference to do that part of the process. Yeah. I love that.
That actually have the innate abilities, not just the preference, because they will bobblehead to you and say, yes, boss, I can do this. Sure. I got it. 2:00 when they want to be on the soccer field with their kids, rightfully as they should, in my opinion, then they're going to be the wrong person because it's not innately in them. They're not innately tied to that. And we use an assessment that skims through that in about, I'd say it's probably a 4-minute assessment.
Do you mind sharing what assessment, or is that a proprietary thing?
It's not a proprietary thing. It's called the Core Values Index.
Okay. And can you speak to how you use that and maybe even a story of how that changed an important decision for you?
This is an assessment that I base all of my coaching on. It's phenomenal. I use it in my marriage. My kids have taken it. And we have every single person on our team. We have their visual quadrant lined up on the main common area. And this is what we do all of our team coaching and development on. And it measures innately who people are as a person. And there's a science and a psychology into reading and really, people often think it's like, Annette, you're like one of those fortune tellers. Because I'll meet a team and talk to like them for 2 minutes and I'll say, this is exactly what's happening, right? And they're like, how did you know that? I say, I can see objectively on paper that you have this person here and this person here, and that's what's happening. So it really takes a lot of courage and self-awareness for a team to show up, for a business owner to invest in their team, and a team to show up and say, okay, I'm not doing this. I hate this part of my job. And it's like, rightfully, you are not built to do this. You can't see what you can't see. You can't make a dolphin fly. And a lot of times we're trying to make dolphins fly in our companies, and it doesn't work.
Annette, so this core values index, we talk a lot as entrepreneurs about profiling or doing assessments on interviewees, right? Do they fit our company's values, or how do they fit within their own profiled status and assessment? But it seems like what you do here with the core values index is when you go work with a team, you have them complete that assessment before working with them, and maybe even your own internal team. You said, we know where we all sit here. And I find that to be very enlightening process that, again, very few entrepreneurs do. I know in a couple of our businesses, we do not do that. We do calipers and things like that at the interview stage.
Mhm.
We don't take it into, okay, let's look at the team together and here's where you guys all sit. And no wonder that's not working over there. And Rich asked you a really important question, which is, it's either no process, it's a broken process, or you've outgrown the process. You said those are the three things. And Rich said, wait a minute, maybe it's not the process, maybe it's the people. Great point, Rich. But here's the problem. You have the wrong people in the wrong spots. But we don't really do that next level view inside the box of the people enough. We just try and put more red tape. We try and put another step in the process to try and fix the fact that we don't understand people. I don't even know if that's a question. I guess I'm just re-articulating what you said in terms of maybe a major area of weakness that I think I and other entrepreneurs have, which is we try and maybe focus too much on the process and not enough on the people within each step of the process. Is that fair?
Right. And it really goes full circle. Build your company, build your people, build your company. I think, and we do use this assessment on the hiring side. In fact, I will not talk to until I have seen what the job description is, right? What exactly I need. And then I see the profile on paper. And if they don't fit, then we do not even have a phone interview or meet the person at all. They are ruled out because we fall in love easily as business owners. So it's easy to fall in love with the wrong people, to Rich's point. It's easy to fall in love with a seller that is knocking at your door if you don't know exactly what you want. And you just almost have to protect yourself from yourself, really.
Yeah. So you're right. You just brought us back to where we started, which is I asked, what's the number one thing that people need to evolve in? You said leadership. And you said, if you grow, the individuals on your team will grow, which brings us all the way back full circle. And that you got a lot going on. You're the CEO owner of Timber Industries. You got a commercial carpentry company. You have iEvolve Consulting that you're the founder of. You host your own podcast. What's your why? Why are you doing all this? Why not just go be the CEO of Timber Industries and grow that business? Why are you helping entrepreneurs evolve? What is the why behind you?
Tennis? Oh, no, just kidding. Let's see. This question, and I love Simon Sinek. I really do. I don't know. I don't know my why. I know that there is a spark in me that I get excited about things and I just follow it. And I think if you have fun and you're around good people, do good things and find more good people. And my why, yes, do I have two amazing boys, one who has type 1 diabetes, and I do it all for them? Of course. But I think it's just a spark in me that I don't even know any better.
I heard in that over the course of this conversation, and I don't mean to declare your why for you, but one of the things that's really speaking to me about you is you have a really deep passion to build people who build businesses.
Mhm.
And you really are driven by that. You are lit up by that. You want to find new ways to do that, whether it be selling a company into somebody else who gets to build the business, or like everything we've talked about over the course of this conversation that has lit you up has been about building people who build businesses. So I just want to reflect that back to you, as it's super vulnerable to be on a podcast and say, I'm not sure what my why is, but I heard that and that came through loud and clear.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I can see people's path, like when they're sitting in front of me and they're having those moments of doubt and just going through it. And you both have been through it because you're in those shoes. I can just see the next steps that they need to make. And I can see what needs to be done for them to get to that next level. It's like right in front of me. And when you really just break it down into a very simple thing for them, it doesn't seem so overwhelming. That's not using big words like manifest or whatever is trending out there. I think that everybody's human and we're doing really hard things here. If you can just keep on going and keep swinging the bat and showing up to the plate, then my boys do not play baseball. But I just think everybody can do this, and it's okay to not know how to do it. And it's okay to ask people for help and say, all right, let's do this. How can I do this and get to the next level?
Powerful message you provided us today. If people want to get more of you, how would you like them to do that?
Thank you for asking that. And again, thank you for your kind words at the end there. I have a generic email. It's yourock@iEvolveconsulting.co. So they can email. That's fine. We're on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at iEvolve Daily, and on LinkedIn, Annette Walter. But yeah, you rock at iEvolve Consulting, probably the easiest one to remember, I would guess.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you both. And thank you both
Annette.
for what you're doing. You both are truly inspiring. I appreciate it.
Stay tuned as John and Rich unpack today's conversation.
John, what a great conversation we had with Annette. There were so many nuances and avenues that we could have continued to go down with her to get more and more value. And when she was talking about the part of who owns the process, and you highlighted that I brought up, yeah, but it may not be the process, it might be the person. I've got to highlight what you said next. I've never thought about it like that. That sometimes we continue to edit the process to compensate for a person who doesn't have that innate ability. Where if they just had that innate ability, you wouldn't even need a process. Sometimes if you put the right person in place, like they would have a preference to go do that thing. They would have some innate ability to be detail oriented or relationship oriented. And if you got to spell out every single nitpicking detail of a relationship development process, you might have the wrong person in the sales role.
I can't remember who the guest was, unfortunately. Your memory is a lot better than mine, but we talked about dumb rules.
Yes.
And what ends up happening in companies, and the larger you get, the dumber they become, the rules, is that as time goes on, a process breaks. So you put in another rule. And then something else breaks. So you put in another rule. And you just keep putting in all these different rules to the point where somebody looks back on your business 5 years from now and goes, why are you doing all these things when all you need to do is this? And you can eliminate all these dumb rules because they were created to circumvent a broken process or an outgrown process or the wrong people in the wrong spots. So yeah, that really was my big takeaway from this conversation as well. Is way too often we try and fix the process, not fix the people running the process, or put the right people in place, I should say, that should be running the process. So to me, it came back to the first thing she talked about, Rich. You have to not only grow the individuals on your team in order to grow your team, you need to make sure that the individuals on your team are in a position to grow. And she corrected as well. I think the preferences example, which I thought was a really good correction, is not just what they prefer to do, it's what they have innate ability to really excel at that we need to really understand.
You know what's so funny is I'm so steeped in the language of the caliper profile that when caliper uses a word preference, it actually means innate ability, not just they like to do it.
Yeah.
So it's funny that just the common language and the importance of it. At the end, she said, I can see the next steps that people need to make. Wow, I can relate with that. And I bet you can relate with that. I think that's one of the things that a really good coach can do is they can elevate above the scenario that you're bringing to a coach on what do I do here and I'm stuck. And for a coach who has experience in theoretical knowledge and practical experience, what path to go down, it just can get visualized by the coach and described and then massaged with the person being coached. I think that's the value of having a good coach is they can start to see what should happen next.
Yeah, and it also talks about if you want to learn how to throw a football, you should probably learn from somebody who knows how to throw a football and has done it before and has made interceptions before or whatever. And so one of the principles that we're taught way early on, not just in a coaching business, it's just in coaching individuals, is when somebody asks you for feedback or advice on something, the best form of coaching is to relate to a prior experience. Not tell them, here's what you should do. I think you should do this. I think you should run across the street. No. It's in this situation that happened to me or happened to somebody else. Here's what they did and here was the result. And therefore, based on your experience, it sounds like you're in a similar situation. You should probably run across the street like that person did, right? But you're referring it to an actual relative example of what happened. And I think that's what creates a little bit of we see it. We see what the opportunity is, or we see what they should be doing before the full story is even articulated because we've seen the playbook before. Or we've seen other people execute a playbook similarly that worked or didn't work. And so that relative experience beyond theoretical knowledge, I think, is really important for entrepreneurs to be working with people that have seen those things before.
I also think we could look at entrepreneurs as coaches of their employees, their ability to see what should happen next. And I'll share with you, John, one of the things that I've learned, I don't even remember when, it must have been over a decade ago, in terms of language to use is based on my experience. And then telling a story about the experience that the coach had.
Exactly.
And when we get out of, as a coach, when we get out of the you should, or even I think you should, when we get out of that's prescribing to the individual and we can get into based on my experience, here's what happened, here's a decision I made, here's what I learned, what are your thoughts? We allow then the person who that is being coached, them to then make that prescription on what they want to do next. And it's much higher buy-in from the people that are being coached. So again, the reason I do this isn't like for you and I as coaches and working with entrepreneurs, I highlight that for entrepreneurs who are clearly to be coaching the employees that they have.
And that's part of I think that's part of the trap as an entrepreneur, especially a founding entrepreneur who's actually was the first person in the company executing these roles, and they graduate to become the CEO of the business. And maybe they're a couple of layers even removed from the people that are actually executing the work. And they'll walk by and go, no, do it this way. Hey, you over there, do it this way. Do it. And they become more authoritarian, right? Here's what you need to do this. And I find that the best leaders, as they evolve, the best leadership skills maybe that an entrepreneur can evolve into is one where when the employee or the team member brings them a problem, they don't just give them the solution. They give them the story behind their experience and what they learned, ask them, to your point, your thoughts. What do you think you should do? Based on the information I gave you, Rich, what do you think the best solution is for this situation? Let them think, that critical thinking that you allow your employees to make. And then, you know what? Sometimes the employee will say, I still think I should do X. And you as the entrepreneur think it should be Y. Do you let them do X and let them fail and learn? Or do you say, no, you can't do that. You got to do it this way. And how you address those situations is really a critical leadership skill set and how you help your team grow. Because if you help the individuals grow, your team will grow. That's what Annette was talking about throughout this whole conversation.
It's so funny you say that, what you just said, because I was just coaching an entrepreneur yesterday on their engagement with an employee who has way more experience than what they give themselves credit for. And this particular employee has a perfectionism preference. They want to make sure they're doing it right. So they'd always go back to that entrepreneur and say, hey, here's a scenario. What do you think I should do? Because it's plain it's safe. When an employee comes and says, what do you think I should do? They actually absolve the responsibility of it working. Because if it doesn't work, you're the one that told me to do that.
Right.
So what we were talking about with this entrepreneur just yesterday was changing the orientation of what doing it right looks like for this employee. That doing it right is not to do what I thought you should have done. Doing it right is you identify a problem and you take action on it and then call me and let's debrief how that went. So don't call me until you've already taken action on that problem. That's doing it right. And then as an entrepreneur, we've got to be disciplined when somebody says what they did and it's not exactly what we thought they should have done, to really praise them for, hey, I really appreciate the fact that you did what we talked about. You identified a problem and you took action on it. I love that you did that. What did you learn?
Yeah.
So it was just reframing this whole piece of somebody wanting to make sure they're pleasing you and doing it right. What is doing it right? And reframing what that is to taking action and not playing it safe and getting the instruction from the entrepreneur.
That's right. I think, Annette, you and I and the listeners that are still listening to this podcast right now have one thing in common. We all want to evolve. We want to become better versions of ourselves. We're curious. We're trying to soak in content. And if, as the saying goes, you can grab one or two things from every conversation, it's really worth your time. And I know I grabbed that today, and hopefully you and our listeners grabbed that as well. I thought this conversation with Annette was really, I think, powerful to, if you want to evolve, be curious, go learn, go develop.